Record this, or there you go.
Yeah,
Yes, you are.
yeah, it'll be. So the first question I'm just gonna ask is like, why? What got you interested in like coaching high school basketball?
Yeah, so kind of crazy thing. I always liked coaching. And I knew that because I have an older brother and a younger brother. So obviously being the middle child, like you always wanted to be like your older brother, right? So you look up to your older brother. He was playing basketball, so I enjoyed it. And I wanted to be like him. Um, and then there was actually I always loved the game, always loved kind of doing that thing. And my dad would always coach like our rec teams when we were growing up. So he started a team, coached my little brother, and like two practices in, my dad got pretty sick. He's fine now, but got pretty sick. And instead of like telling the guy who runs the league, like, hey, I need to take some time off, he said, you know what, Todd? I was like 14 or 15 at this time. I think it was in ninth or 10th grade. He said, you coach them. You know enough about basketball. You're playing varsity basketball as a freshman. You coach them. So I did, and that was like I knew right then and there that's what I wanted to do. So that's kind of how I got into it. We won our first game, and all the parents were like, "Wow, this is so cool!" And young kid, you know how to coach and manage the bench, and so I was like, that right there sold it for me. I knew I wanted to do it then.
Cool. So coaching at coaching in SoCal in some of the toughest environments, basketball in the country, at least I think so. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
biased, of course, but like,
yeah,
what what do you think's been one of the challenges at each of the schools that you've coached at?
yeah. Just the evolving way that basketball is kind of evolving. And the nuts and bolts basketball is still basketball, coaching still coaching. Whether it was 50 years ago, 10 years from now, it's coaching still coaching. You're still trying to help young men and women achieve their goals and do things that they can't do without a coach to guide them and to lead them in the direction, and take a bunch of individuals and make them into a team. But the SoCal landscape is just crazy because of how basketball is evolving. And I think part of it, like we discussed, is the Sierra Canyons and the LeBron James son, and the kind of the limelight that Southern California basketball is kind of taken into account with social media and Slam and Overtime and ESPN and all that stuff. Our just a quick transformation. Our league, championship 10 years ago would probably be 200 people at the game, and this year it's going to be at Poly Pavilion on ESPN. So that's how much we've changed from a high school thing. And I think with the NIL deals in college, I think a lot of people are going to start to shift their focus towards high school, because it's the last purity of basketball where players aren't really getting paid to play. You still get that purity of the love of the game, and kids are just playing because they want to play, and you're getting the hometown rivalries where the NIL has kind of brought people now to, they're making a lot of money, and it's not about representing your school as much as it might have used to be. It's more about where can I go and make the most money, instead of playing for your home college that you grew up down the street from. So I think the high school basketball landscape is evolving. I think SoCal basketball is awesome. It's a great time to be a coach here and compete. And we got 16 Division I players in our league, which is unheard of. And I'm excited to coach this year.
Mhm. All right. Can you walk me through like what an everyday, like in like a what a day in the life looks like during the season?
Sure. Yeah. So mornings is usually an early morning. The first thing I like to do is either I'll get into the office and I'll watch the day before's practice, or watch the game that would just happen yesterday. So whatever it is we played, if we practice, that's my first thing I'm watching. Usually I'm just running it through one time. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to make clips. I'm going to make comments. I'm going to send our guys little clips and things like that, just as an individual part, so we can work on their individual game. And then I'm usually in a text thread with our coaching staff, because I want to get their opinions on yesterday's practice, yesterday's game. What happened? How was it? What do they think? What do you think we need to work on? Whether I take their advice or not, I still want to get their opinions. And, I don't see everything and know everything, so I want to get their opinions. Once that happens, usually paperwork for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, whether it's phone calls with colleges, with recruiting stuff, whether it's bus schedules, whether it's a kid who needs to see get an MRI, which is dealing with today. Kid, going to see a physical therapist. Can he get in before practice? Stuff like that I'm trying to deal with to try to make sure these guys are all taken care of for that day. And then it's probably lunchtime, and then an hour or two of scout film. I'll usually watch our next opponent, watch a game or two, get their stat breakdown, watch some scout film, and then it's write the practice plan or the game plan for our game of that day before we start. Then we go right to team meal. Usually you're eating 4 hours before a game. We go right to team meal, and we go to film. So film will usually be 30, 45 minutes, and we're usually watching ourselves for about 15 to 20, then about 20 to 30 minutes of our opponent, going over our game plan, and then it's shoot around for an hour and a half. And then it's get on the bus, and we're doing our pregame and getting to game time. Get home, upload film, hopefully have something to eat, and kind of rinse and repeat and go back the next day. So yeah, that's kind of the day of the life.
Can you talk about just the balance that has to come with coaching a club team for so long and a high school team at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, in order to be successful in order to be successful as a high school coach, you have to be involved in the grassroots level. That's just something you have to do now. You can't just be a coach that coaches from the first day the season starts, or your first day you're eligible to practice, and then pack it up when the season's over. You got to get to know the kids in the area. It's so competitive nowadays that you need a base of kids that can help your school, and can help programs. And it's a lot of work, but it's the right way to get kids to believe in your culture and to kind of mold them to get to your school, and mold them to kind of get the way you want to be. Like from our standpoint, it's important for me to find out the type of young man that's coaching boys, the type of young man that we're going to get before we even start coaching him in high school. Is he selfish? What's his character like? Stuff like that. So for us, we can kind of have some idea of the kind of young man we're getting, and hopefully help that young man at an early age, instead of letting his bad habits get to the point where now we picked him up in high school and he's a sophomore or junior. It's like, wow, it's probably too late to change some of these bad habits. We get a kid who's too emotional with officials. We can change that in, 6th and 7th grade. Now he's getting to high school and he's not having those issues to deal with. So that's important for us, is trying to fix and help those young men early before they get to high school.
So you mentioned some of those characteristics of like what you look for. What would you say you look for when you're trying to find players, whether it's for Rising Stars or for St. Francis?
Right. I mean, for us, the number one is high character above everything else. I mean, there's plenty of good players, especially in Southern California. If we lived in the middle of, I don't want to name a state, but in the middle of nowhere, and there was 2,000 people in our city, it'd be different. You got one good player, you got to go get him. But Southern California, there's plenty of good talent. I'm sure there's a top 1% tier talent, but there's plenty of talent, and I think what makes it for me, I've been coaching now, this is year 16 for me as a high school basketball varsity coach. I'm done coaching kids that have bad character. You're going to steal, you're going to be a jerk to your teachers, you're going to, not want to be coached, you're not going to be a good teammate, and a good leader. I'm not wasting my time anymore. There's an age-old adage is, are the points worth the problems? And for me, that's really not an issue, because I'm not going to get a kid. I don't care how many points you score. If you got too many problems that you're going to bring to our plate, it's just not worth it for us, because I'm not going to waste my time with a guy who's all about himself and has low character. So character for sure, number one. I would say, talent, number two. You got to have some kids with talent. And then three, I think the eagerness to want to be coached, I think, is an important skill that people lack. And I think finding kids that want to be coached and want to get better is fun. It makes it fun for me to coach, and makes it easier for me to coach. And seeing the difference between, rewarding and fun, having that balance.
So you've taken 3 programs who are not like in the mud, but like not going through their best times, right? And turn each of them into a contender,
Okay.
two of them into state title winners. What what makes you like be able to do that? Just go to a team and rebuild them in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a stereotype, but it's culture. I mean, it's just building the right culture. Not putting up with anything. I think a lot of times, culture is the number one thing that can kind of turn a team around. I think number two is really caring about your players. I think coaches lack that, and players are just like regular people. Everybody wants love. Everyone wants friends. Everyone wants to feel liked. Everyone wants to feel a part of the team. I think showing your players love and each and every one of them being invested in their lives, not just as a basketball player. And what can this kid, what can this young man do for me? I think it's more of taking a real interest in the guys that are in your program and helping them. I think you go back to day one of why you coached. I coached. Remember, when I was helping my little brother coach when I was 14, it's because I loved it. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't to I want to help these kids be successful. And I think going back to that and always reminding myself that that's my goal is to make these kids successful. And there's days where it's frustrating and challenging, but making sure that that's what you want to do. And I think if you change your culture, you show kids love, and you really invest the time that it takes to turn a program around. I think it's easily possible. But if you're going to show up 10 minutes before practice and you're going to leave 5 minutes after practice and you're not going to get to know your guys, and you can care less what they do in the classroom, and you can care less what community service they're doing, and yeah, their culture is going to be bad, and kids aren't. You're not going to be successful because 90% of what you do to win games is off the court. So you got to really build that off the court stuff. You got to make a kid want to run through a wall for you.
What would be your favorite moment at each program you coached at? So like favorite moment at Elko, favorite moment at
Mm-hmm.
Chaminade, favorite Rising Stars thing, favorite St. Francis thing.
So I think at El Camino, for me it was cliche a little bit, but we the year before I got there, they were 0-20 something. It was, I mean, didn't win a game. So our first, or I think it was our first tournament that we played in. We played a couple preseason games, but our first tournament we played in, because they did the schedule before I got there, was the Chaminade tournament. And of course we were 0 and whatever. So who do we play in the first round? It was Chaminade. And we came in there and beat them. And that was like our first win in a year and a half as a program. And it was against the team that put us in their tournament and pinned us against them. And that was, for me, was like awesome. And the kids, just seeing their kids crying and hugging each other. Everyone went out to breakfast after, and families were there. And it was a fun moment to kind of just see that, kids are genuine and they want to win. They want to be successful. And that was for me, the moment there. Rising Stars for me was kind of our first team we had. I can always remember, Mike and I always talked about how can we really help at the youth level, because there was so much bad things going on at the youth level. So we wanted to start a program. We always talked about it that really helped the kids at the youth level. It wasn't just about money. Obviously it's a job, but it wasn't just about money. It was more how can we help these young guys and girls. So for us, it was our first game we ever coached. Mike and I after the game was like, we really just did that. Like we really just started the team and did that, and it was awesome. And then at Chaminade, I think winning a state championship for me was great. Never had that group of boys was phenomenal. And then probably I said the same thing at St. Francis. When I got interviewed at St. Francis and they called me to apply for the job, they said we want to win. I know it's going to take you probably 8 to 10 years to win a CIF championship or a state championship. And in the fourth year, we got one. And that group of boys was, we sent 20 texts this morning, that same team, and just having that connection with those guys. And I try to stress to our guys, like, you're going to be a team forever. So I think those are my highlights from each place.
Do you think it's ever like sweeter when you beat not like beat your old. It's not sweeter when you beat your old team, but like there's a little more satisfaction when you do that.
No, um, we're always just one game at a time. Like no game's bigger than another one. I mean, for us, that's kind of our. It's so cliche, but trust the process. Like I'm not a big like, oh my god, we lost. Oh my god, we won. Like, hey, my post game speeches are about 30 seconds if we win, and they're about 30 seconds if we lose. Let's go. Let's move on, and we gotta get better and work, and just keep that grind going. Um, it's fun going back to the places that I coached against, and coaching against them. But I think it's more like, when I go back to Chaminade or go back to El Camino, it's more about the people that are still there. Like for me, that's awesome. Like I love going back to Chaminade, not because I want to beat them so bad. Like sure, I want to win every game just as equal, but like I get to see the people that I used to work with and the people that made my life easy and helped me become a good coach. When I go to El Camino, I see my jersey and all the guys that when I played and, because I went there and stuff like that. So that I think for me, it's more about the people.
So like, because you switched high schools twice. What's the toughest part about having to make that decision to switch a school, especially the second time when you just switch? The first time was like schools within 2 miles of each other. The second time was schools within the same league. What's like the toughest part about that?
The kids, the players for sure. Every year you have a group of kids that they're going to start their senior year and you want to be a part of their senior year and that journey that it is senior year because it's a typical typical a great thing for them to experience that senior year. And then it's also the freshmen that are incoming that kind of say recruited, but they came to your school to play for you. And that's always a tough thing is to say goodbye to those seniors and you're not going to be a part of that. And then also saying, to the freshmen that came to that school to maybe play for you that you're not going to be there anymore. One of the things I made sure when I left Chaminade, I sat all the guys that were going to be seniors down and I said, look, I'm going to be a part of your journey, whether you like it or not, whether I'm your coach or not. We only play each other twice. It's not like we play each other every night. So the 2 games we play each other, yeah, I'm going to try to beat your butt. But the other ones, if you need help breaking down film or you want me to look at your shot or you want to come get a workout or I want to help you because I promise to you that, I'm going to be part of your life for as long as I could be, whether I coach you or not. And that was tough for me. And I think, making sure those guys got off the right way was good. Like I went to that graduation, that year that I left just to make sure I was there for those seniors.
So because of all the success you've had, I know in SoCal people are always like, "Oh, will he ever go to the next level?" Do you think what would it take for you to go to college? Like what like Russell White did at
Yeah,
Crespi, winning 2 back-to-back state titles and going to Kalu. What do you think it would take for you to go to that next level, or is high school just too in love with coaching high school basketball?
I love high school basketball. It's gonna be tough for me to leave. I've had offers to go coach at Division I schools as assistants. I don't know if I'm ready to be an assistant coach right now for somebody, unless it was the right fit and it was the right place. I think that kind of opens up doors. But to be an assistant for a lower Division I school, I like my job better. I like the impact I can make. I like being able to make my own practice plan, and I really enjoy the people I work with. As at a big school like you guys are at, coaching's coaching, but there's now money involved and there's now player recruiting involved. I mean, I have a buddy who's a college coach who told me he shows up to 3 practices a year. He's a Division I college coach. He's on the road recruiting 360 days out of the year. So do I really want to be on the road 300 days out of the year and not being able to see practice? I enjoy being hands on and that for me is important. So I think if it was the right situation, the right person I could work for, or I was a head coach somewhere, then I think that would be definitely appeasing. But to go sit on a bench at Cal State Northridge per se is I like my job better. I like what I do. I like my freedom. I like being able to impact kids in a way. I don't really want to talk about how much money they can make for an NIL deal, and it's not what I'm about right now. So, um, who knows? This year, this is kind of where I'm at. Never know. In a couple of years, things can change. So,
What would you say was your favorite? I know your probably two favorite teams are probably 2014 at Chaminade and 2020 at St. Francis, obviously. But what would you say was like your favorite group of just guys that you had at like one point?
Yeah. I think that group at Chaminade I had was awesome. Um, we didn't win the state championship that year, but that was the year we had, Trevor Stanback and Jaron Martin, Michael O'Guiney, Jordan O'Gunderin, Aiden Dolan. That was a great year. That was a great class. I think we had 11 guys in that group. In that 2 year span, 11 guys that played college sports, which is just absolutely insane. We played a game that year against Loyola, and I'm a good friends with the Loyola coach now to this day. And there was 21 kids in that entire game from both teams that played college sports, and that is just an astronomical number. And I think 14 of the 21 went to Division One, which is just like mind blowing. That there was all that talent on the floor, and that team was fun. That team was close. They slept at each other's houses, and there's a good group of parents that year. And then the year 2020, that year was, at St. Francis was phenomenal. Like I said, we have a group chat that literally I'll wake up and there's 120 texts in that chat. Those guys are so close, and they're all in college now. They're all sophomores and juniors, and it's just a great thing. We're going to Thanksgiving, day before Thanksgiving. That whole team's getting together, and we're doing something. So that just shows how connected that group still is. So
I think this will be my last one, probably.
sure.
What would you say would be like a piece of advice that you would give, whether it's uh, a player, a parent, or like someone who wants to coach? Like, what would be like the piece of advice you would give some of those people?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think the number one thing I would say is, like, if you're gonna, it's cliche, but if you're gonna do something, you got to be all in. It's got to be all in. And kids notice when you're all in. Kids can tell if you're one toe in the pool trying to coach. Kids are gonna know. Parents are gonna know. They're pretty smart. You got to be all in, and everybody wants someone in this life that cares for them. That's why people get married, and people have kids, and people have friends, and people just want to be cared for. They want to be liked. They want to be cared for. And if you can show your players that you like them and can care for them and be a part of their life, they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna run through a wall for you, and they're gonna play hard. Everyone always asks me, Coach, man, your teams play so hard. I don't understand. Like, what do you do? Can I come to watch practice? I'm like, you can. Like, we really don't do much different. It's just when practice is over, I go in the locker room and joke around with these guys and have fun and ask about their girlfriends and check their grades and see if they need $5 for lunch tomorrow. Like, that's what coaching is about. And when they understand that you care for them and they don't just see them as a basketball player, they'll run through a wall for you. So that would be kind of my advice is there's so much more to coaching than what goes on in between the lines. Really pay attention to the athlete as a person.
All right, that's all I got.